Yeah, welcome to What's Broken. Today I'm building I don't know what you call it, a changeover setup for my ice auger so I can use my Milwaukee drill, the cordless. I've got the hand crank here, and then I picked up some heavy wall pipe, a little bit of 1/2 inch hot roll. I'll just take you over and show you the one I built previous. So here's a shot of the first one I built probably, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years ago. The drill just sits on top in a saddle. Tightens in. Then there's a trigger, or a trigger lever that operates the drill trigger. Works well. It's a 6-inch cut, about 6-inch auger, about 40 inches of depth. The new one I'm building is an 8-inch auger, and I've set it up, I think, for 50 or 50 some inches of depth. Some of the ice up on Spray Lakes gets 4 feet deep. About 0.71. Yeah, 0.715. I think this stuff is 0.75. So I got to take 0.04 of an inch off. And I don't have a lathe, so let's just make a mark about here. Probably don't need that much. And the nice thing about this pipe is this 1/2 inch fits really nice and snug, and that's what the drill will tie onto. So what I'm going to attempt, in order to shave a little bit off of this, because it's quite a heavy wall, so I'm just going to roll it back and forth and use my flapper disc and see if that will trim it down and if I can keep it fairly uniform. So this could get a little noisy for a little bit, but here goes. Let's see if it did anything. Now it's pretty consistent at 0.74, so it's taken off, what, 0.01 of an inch. Okay, I'm going to keep at it for a bit. I'll bring you back once I whittle it down to approximate size. Alright, about 20 minutes or so of, the flapper disc, and I use the file a little bit. It slides in quite nicely. I made a mark. So it extends down below this reduction. What I am going to do now though is put this in the vise and just take emery cloth. I'll show you. So I got some, I think it's 80 grit. That fits pretty good. See how much wobble this has. Yeah, this handle has more wobble than what the shaft will be. Something else I didn't mention, my my old ice auger is a 6-inch, whereas the new one's an 8-inch. So in case I latch onto one of those lunkers up in Spray Lakes, there's some pretty big fish in there. It'd be nice to be able to actually get it out of the hole. And this old one, or the first one I made, it's about 46 inches. So I think I'm going to make the new one about 56 inches. Give it an extra 10 inch. I'm going to use a 15/64 bit because I think it's a 6 mil metric bolt that goes through it. I may change it to 1/4 inch, not sure yet. Let's see if I got the hole relatively centered. I think that'll work. Okay. So 56 is here. I think I want to bury this, say, 2.5 inches. So I'll cut this off here, bury this in and weld it. And then I've got enough pipe left over to make the swivel. The other thing I want to do is cut a little crescent or sliver out of this, because in addition to welding around here, I think I'll put a bit of a weld in through the body. I'm going to set my little wire feet up and do some tacking. I'll let it cool off a bit and then clean it up. Don't know if you pick that up, but this thing sort of ebbs and flows. It'll run and then it almost cuts out and then it kicks in slowly. So I might be making a video on the good old $40 Power Fist little angle grinder or whatever, variable speed. I do like that variable speed function, and that it was only, I think, 40 bucks on sale. I guess I've had it a couple of years, so yeah, this could be a new video. And to make the swivel that the handles will be welded to, I'm going to cut up 3 chunks of this pipe with the 1/2 inch ID. Make this one about 2 1/4 inches, and then probably a couple of, I don't know, 1/2 inch. That'll weld top and bottom to hold it in place. Just going to try a hacksaw, see how easy it is, and I just made a decision. I'm going to use my big reciprocating saw. This should make the job a little quicker. Yeah, much quicker. And the other thing I did off camera was this did have a bit of a wobble in it. So I took I think a 2-pound sledgehammer and just worked it a bit on this 1/2 inch plate, meaning I hammered the heck out of it to take the wobble out, because I welded pretty heavy on, you know, sort of one side of this. And what that'll do is initially it expands, but then when it cools it contracts and can put a bit of a bend in it. So to make the swivel, and the idea will be to, I'll weld this collar in place. This will slide on and have the handles coming off of it, and then I'll tap this collar on, leave a little bit of clearance or tolerance or whatever, and that'll be the swivel point. But before I put this one on, I want to see if I can drill a hole and tap it and put a grease zert in it, just so every now and again you can lube it up a bit. I don't think this pipe has a seam in it, because I'd like to stay away from the seam if there is one. Get it about the middle. Get it over into the vise. Looks like the thread on the zert I found, or grease zert, is an M6 by 1. And it calls for a 13/64 bit, but I only have a 3/16, which is 12/64, so we'll try that. And there we go. We got the thread cut. Just back it out and see if the grease zert fits. Perfect. All right. Next, I think I'll run a 1/2 inch. I don't know if I'll run a 1/2 inch bit through this, or just try to run a file or something, just to open it up a minuscule amount. I'm just going to clean up the ridges. I just took a round file, stuck it in my drill. There, that gets rid of anything that might catch on the auger shaft. And on this little grease zert, or zerk, I need to take off about 2 threads because it actually extends inside the inside to the inside of that piece of swivel pipe. Well, that was probably enough. It kind of caught on the grinding stone. And where I ground it out was also the sort of the stopper for the, there's a little spring inside these that hold this check ball in place. Given I don't really need that, just pop that out, because really all I need to do is put probably a third or a half of a squirt of grease in, you know, once or twice a year. So this'll work as a lubrication point. Yeah, that should work. I'll probably clean these up with some brake clean and put a drop of red or blue Loctite on it, just to lock it into place. And now it'll swivel on the shaft without the threads on the inside binding. So I went to my metal shop, a place called Steel Inc. And I'm not, you know, I'm giving a shout out to the guy. I've been going there a while. He's a, you know, small proprietor business owner and always seems to have what I want for a decent price. I'll maybe put up a screenshot of his website or whatever. And I went there to pick up some round tubing to make the handles for this, but couldn't find exactly what I was looking for. So I decided to go with this, I believe it's 3/4 by 1.5 inch rectangular tubing. Just made a mark where the drill comes to, the chuck. We'll keep the swivel maybe, I don't know, ½ inch or so below that. It's about 2 1/8. Just trying to get a rough idea, because I'm going to bring one of the handles up at a 45. Yeah, so the problem is, or the situation, is if I cut this at a 45, it's going to extend, so I'll have to modify the end of it a little bit. This is just a carbide chunk of carbide I got years ago, probably, I don't know, 40 years ago, and I ground it down and then brazed it to a chunk of 5/16. It's never lost its point, and it works great for marking metal. What I'm looking for here is an 1.5 inches from here to here. I'm going to trim out this little corner, bend it over, and tack weld it. I'm going to want to saddle this a little bit so it'll fit nicely up to the swivel pipe. So I cut this piece, saddled that end so it fits nice and tight. Then I roughly figured out where I want the handle to be on this side. I marked it. I'm going to cut that at a 45 Put a 45 on here, and that'll give me a nice little handle. I think that should work. That way both my hands will be at the same height. I originally was just going to put the handle straight out, but and then with this 3/4 by 1/8 angle, I'm going to run it up the back side, and that'll provide a stopper to sort of hold the drill in place for when it torques down. So I'm going to take a minute and cut up a couple of pieces, you know, trim this, cut the handle piece, then I'll bring you back when I sort of fit everything up and tack it up a bit. And next, just marked an X on the ends that I want to cap in. I got some 3/4 wide I'm going to tack on, cut off, and just close these ends all in to make it look pretty. The other thing I did was, you might be able to see the shiny, I just took the flapper disc and knocked all the mill scale off. Just makes it easier for tacking and welding, a little bit cleaner. Okay, I put a brand new 60 grit flapper disc on, so that should make pretty quick work of the welds. Okay, well, those are all capped and shined up, so we can sort of mock this up and tack it together. I think I got to change the battery though. So I got a couple of the pieces clamped in place. I took out the grease zert and screwed in a metric bolt just as a placeholder, so it doesn't melt that little grease zert I made. I'll let that cool in place and then flip it over and get the other side. I also got to let this little buzz box cool off for a few minutes. Well, I'll let that cool down and then clean it up with the flapper disc. So the swivel pipe's quite a bit heavier wall than this tubing. So I was keeping most of the puddle or the heat on the wall and then just sort of licking it or moving it over a little bit to catch the lighter stuff. Otherwise, it's real easy to blow a hole in that thin wall tubing. Okay, I'll let that cool down, then I'll clean it up with the flapper disc and on to the next step. On that last, where I welded that last time, I had to do a whole bunch of spot welds because both of these components are really thin wall, like a 1/16 of an inch. So you just sort of have to tack and then tack in between and then tack some more until you get it filled in. And now that this swivel's been all welded up, yeah, it shrunk. So I think I'll put it in a vise and get a 1/2-inch drill bit and try to ream it out a bit. Dip the bit in some oil. Well, I ran the bit through a few times, and I got one of these little cheapo grinding stones, so I'm just going to try honing it. Well, it won't be sloppy, that's for sure. So I honed it a bunch more with this, little grinding stone. I grabbed a 1/2-inch bolt, and it works just fine. So I think part of the issue is this is called 1/2-inch hot roll. If I would have got 1/2-inch cold roll, it's pretty much a perfect symmetrical, round, smooth 1/2-inch rod. But the hot roll is scaly and, it's got bumps and divots in it. So I did spend a little time buffing it down, sort of rounding it out with this. I'll just show you what I was doing, and now it seems to fit. Not exactly a lathe, but the end result is it turns inside there now. So that's good. I came up with something to smooth it out even more. I just got it sitting in the drill. This end's just sitting in a small chunk of angle iron that I tightened into the vise. Go put it in reverse and use a file. like that. Trued it up and smoothed it out quite a bit. So I'm just going to tack and weld the little collar stoppers in place. That'll hold the swivel. And to create a, I don't know what you want to call it, a backstop for the drill, I carved up a little chunk of 3/4 wide, and I've got this angle. So I'm going to tack them or weld them together, and they'll go there and create a backstop for this. Also have some of this, I don't know what you call it, it's that foamy bumper stuff, and I'm going to stick it on this side just to create a little cushion for the drill. Just get a tack on this. I just ground off the weld on the back, and it pulled it a bit. I'll just that flattened it out nicely. I'll cool it down, clean it up a bit, and then we can tack it to the auger frame. And I squared it up with this side of the handle. I've got one of those right angle magnets on it. Just gonna tack it in place. And to sort of lock it in place, I found this handle thing. Anyhow, I'm going to cut it off. weld it there. And then the tarp strap, I'll cut it off a little shorter, punch a hole in it, and I think weld a bolt. And that'll just provide a little bit of extra security or whatever. And I'll start by cutting a chunk off of this. So I vice gripped that little stub into place. Yeah, seems to. Okay, so I got the threads cleaned up. Just going to put a lock nut on it. And then the idea when the drill's in place, that just provides a little extra stability. I think it's probably safe to put the grease nipple back in. Yeah, still swivels, so that's good. So just when I thought I was almost done, a couple of you might have picked up on when I put this support for the drill, I put it on the wrong I put it on the wrong side. Because the torque of the drill when it's cutting, the handle wants to go this way, not that way. So I'm going to take a minute and just cut this off with my cutting wheel, clean it up, tack it on the other side, and then I can finish up the last brace and maybe get it painted. I took a little chunk of 1/4 inch hot roll, cleaned it up with a flapper disc, a couple of small bends, just going to weld it in place, and that'll provide a little more, well, I don't know, stabilizing for the stress or the torque. should be ready to rock and roll. Well, maybe I'll get a shot of it going through the ice, or maybe not, but either way, thanks for hanging out. We'll maybe see you on the next one. Bye for now.